And today we will be talking about the serial killer, Rodney Alcala, who played the legal system like it was a card game. He was also known as the dating game killer.
This is why I don't date. Not because men won't do it, but because they could be killers.
Really, he was such a charismatic, a-hole,
They say Ted Bundy was too, but he wasn't my type.
I mean, you tell that to him. Alright, let's get into it. Do you enjoy that dramatic fold?
Okay. I did.
On August 23rd, 1943, Rodney Alcala was born in San Antonio, Texas to Raul and Anna. He had 3 siblings, 2 sisters, and 1 brother. In 1951, Rodney's father moved the whole family to Mexico. 3 years later, he abandoned them.
Men.
Rodney will later cite this abandonment as what led him to his sadistic and aggressive characteristics.
Sure, buddy.
Fair.
About a year after his father left him, Rodney's mother moved the family to the suburbs when Rodney was about 11.
The suburbs are a terrible place.
Especially in Los Angeles.
Oh, Los Angeles suburbs?
Yeah.
It's just city and desert, and that is
exactly.
it.
Where are the suburbs?
It's just people who fell out of the city.
Pretty much.
In 1960, at the age of 17, Rodney joined the Army as a clerk. He served until he was 21, and in 1964 was medically discharged after suffering a severe nervous breakdown. A military psychiatrist diagnosed Rodney with antisocial personality disorder.
Me.
Later, during his trials, Rodney would also be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and malignant narcissistic personality disorder with psychopathic and sexual comorbidities.
I take it back, this does sound like the people I date.
Despite his disorder, Rodney was accepted into UCLA School of Fine Arts. With an IQ hovering around 160, Rodney considered himself a genius. He later graduated from UCLA in 1968.
There's the narcissism.
Yeah, I like how he's like...
I consider myself to be a genius. Thank you very much.
This actually comes in later to his ways of representing himself, because he just assumed he was so smart.
And this brings us to Rodney's first crime, the rape and assault of Tally Shapiro.
8-year-old Tally... Wait for it.
8-year-old Tally Shapiro was walking home alone on the sidewalk when Rodney pulled up next to her in his car. He convinced the little girl to get into his car by telling her that he was a family friend. A nearby motorist spotted the interaction and followed Rodney to his apartment, notifying LAPD of the kidnapping.
So, kudos to this guy for seeing it instead of just being like, oh, that's probably, a parent. Being like, nah, this is shady cheese going on.
But who's creepier, the guy who convinced the little girl to get in his van, or the guy who followed the van with the little girl in it?
The guy who convinced the little girl in the van.
Okay, but, was he this shady? I'ma catch him. Or was he action? We don't know his intentions.
Either way, he still called the police. So, he was trying to do something good.
I mean, probably after he saw, how old she actually was, not being like, I think that girl is 10 years older than she is. I'll tell myself that and keep going.
Yeah, because she was 8. She was a little baby.
All children are babies until they're 25.
I mean, fair.
If you're not 18, then you're 12.
See, I'm just 12 because I look 12.
Same.
When the police arrived at Rodney's apartment, he initially answered the door, telling police that he just got out of the shower and would let them inside in a moment. Instead, he fled out the back door. After too much time had passed, police broke into his apartment. Inside was a horror show, with a trail of blood leading to where Tally Shapiro lay on the floor, barely alive. She had been beaten with a 10-pound steel bar and raped. Miraculously, due to the swiftness of police getting to the scene, Tally survived her ordeal.
Let me just say, that's the first time I've ever heard, anything positive about the LAPD. Especially since this is in the 70s. They're notoriously corrupt.
Alright, boys, I'll give you this. I'll give you this. But you're on thin ice.
Yeah. Go ahead, sip it. You got nothing to sip.
Rodney was nowhere to be found, but in his bedroom, police found his UCLA student ID, positively identifying him, and a photo album of pictures he took of unidentified women. Rodney was added to the FBI's most wanted list. Rodney fled to New York after the assault, where he took up the alias John Berger. He attended film school at NYU and studied under the convicted sex offender Roman Polanski.
Isn't it weird how these people just find each other?
Do they, like, trade tips? Like, is it like, hey, I know this tea. That's right out. Like, that would be terrible.
I sure hope not. Do they have, like, a cult?
Is it, like, a secret phone tree? Like, one person calls the one, and then they call, like, two people, and then those two people call two people, and then you've got Karen yelling at you for not continuing the phone tree.
And Linda over in the corner, who was the one who broke it in the first place.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Damn it, Linda.
However, when Rodney took a job working as a camp counselor for teenage girls in New England, 2 of the girls at his camp recognized him from a wanted poster, and he was arrested and taken back to LA in August of 1971, 3 years after Tally Shapiro's assault.
Wow. Kudos on them, though. Like, I will literally watch a movie for 45 minutes before I recognize that actor from somewhere.
That
like,
is so
how
true. Like, I always see, like, composite sketches and, like, wanted pictures and stuff like that, and I'm like, I wouldn't remember this person's face if I saw them.
Like, where in the...
Did you get your finger?
I almost crushed my finger.
The court case was ready, and prosecutors were sure they had Rodney in the bag until they learned that Tally Shapiro's parents had moved her to Mexico after the ordeal and refused to let her come back to testify. Because of this, Rodney was not charged with rape and attempted murder. Instead, he took a plea deal and pled guilty to the lesser charge of child molestation.
He literally tried to kill a child, but because the child couldn't be there, the case fell apart. And I don't get how that happens. Like, when I was reading the actual case, it was like, because she was a key witness and they didn't have that. But what about the guy who saw her get kidnapped, or the police who went into the scene, broke into the house, and found her?
The pictures of her, because she was a crime scene, so they had to have taken pictures of her, pictures of what happened to her.
He was sentenced to 1 year to life in prison, but was paroled after 34 months in August of 1974 under the Intermediate Sentencing Program.
Wait, so he was sentenced 1 year to life?
So, this is the 70s in California. They had this weird law where pretty much for any crime you got, you would have a minimum sentencing and then to life, but in that time period they would be rehabilitating you, and they would just release you when they felt you were rehabilitated.
Just 2 months later, Rodney was arrested again. On October 16, 1974, Rodney approached 13-year-old Julie J. and offered to give her a ride to school. However, Julie knew she was in trouble when Rodney drove right past her school, ignoring her pleas to let her out of the car. He took her to the Pacific Coast Highway, where he forced the terrified girl to smoke marijuana with him and, quote, French kiss, end quote. Rodney told Julie that he wanted to be, quote, passionate, end quote, with her. But luckily, police showed up before he had a chance. He was arrested for smoking marijuana and pled guilty to the felony, spending 3 years in state prison before being released on parole in June of 1977.
Wait.
Go on.
So he molests a child.
Mm-hmm.
Gets 1 year to life.
Yeah.
He
Spends
smokes
34 months.
He smokes marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets 3 years.
Not to mention ignoring the fact that they never convicted him for kidnapping and sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl. And the actual reason is because the school testified on Rodney's behalf that Julie J. was a notorious liar. The police found them. They found her.
Somehow, despite his multiple convictions, Rodney became a typesetter for the LA Times in 1977. Ironically, this was also the time when the LA Times was covering the Hillside Strangler. Some people would later argue that Rodney took inspiration from this other serial killer in some of his murders.
Because his whole vibe was like beating people up, but then like after a while he started strangling people.
So they do have trading cards.
Yeah, they have baseball cards.
They have baseball.
Yeah.
And you haven't bought them for me?
This is fair.
Rodney considered himself to be a professional photographer.
I have a lot of questions, but the first one would be, why didn't you fill your teacup with that?
I've never washed it. It came from Goodwill.
Then why did you bring it?
It looks nice.
Anyways. Where was I? I totally forgot.
Who specialized in pictures of women and children.
Why won't you take pictures with me? And I'm like, because you're 50?
Yeah.
However, most who agreed to do a photo shoot with Rodney would magically disappear without a trace. This never seemed to ruin business for Rodney, however, as he was known as a charismatic and handsome man. In 1978, Rodney was featured on ABC's hit show, The Dating Game, where he won a date with Bachelorette Cheryl Bradshaw. But backstage after the show, Cheryl rejected Rodney after deciding that he was, quote, creepy, end quote.
Smart girl.
I know! Like, good, like, she's got the vibe check nailed to a T.
Follow this woman's example, alright?
What's crazy is that this show that Rodney's on, you can actually watch it. It's on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah.
Watching ghosts.
And I don't remember which character, but one of the characters from Steinfeld, one of the actors, was also on that show. And he said Rodney was creepy.
There you have it.
Yep.
Hollywood has deemed him creepy.
And she was correct for thinking that. On February 12, 1979, Rodney picked up Monique H., aged 15, and took her for the worst ride of her life. Rodney raped and assaulted the poor girl, but she managed to escape. Rodney was arrested on rape and battery charges, but his mother freed him by paying his $10,000 bail.
I didn't include this because it's a little graphic, but he on tape said that he took her to the mountains, had consensual sex with her, and then when she decided she was done, that was when he assaulted and raped her. So in his own words, he admitted to raping her either way.
He did it. Pack him up, boys!
And now, let's get into Rodney's victims. Investigators basically took Rodney's case in reverse, because the first murder he was convicted of is also the last investigators know about. 12-year-old Raman Samso was at Huntington Beach with her best friend Bridget Wilbert on June 28, 1979, when Rodney approached them and asked if they would pose for pictures. Both girls did until a neighbor noticed the interaction and decided to intervene, making it very clear to Rodney that he was being watched. Rodney fled the scene while making sure to conceal his identity. Later that day, when Robin was riding her friend Bridget's bike to ballet class, Rodney abducted her. Robin's body was found 12 days later, nothing more than bones and a single tennis shoe with her name on it, buried in the brush at the Angeles National Forest, over 40 miles away from where she was taken.
It makes me mad because it was another instance in which he could have been caught because that neighbor saw some fishy business, but then just decided to be like, nah. And then literally the same day she was abducted and killed.
Because of the state of the remains, a cause of death or a decision on whether or not she had been raped was impossible to decipher. But the damage to her lower jaw and a blood-stained knife found at the scene suggests she was either bludgeoned or stabbed to death. Bridget Wilbert, Robin's best friend, helped create a composite sketch for Rodney, which led to his arrest on July 24th for the kidnapping and murder of Robin Samso. Soon after arresting Rodney, police discovered he had a storage locker in Seattle, Washington.
I don't know if you know this, but notoriously a lot of serial killers and a lot of weird murders happen in Washington.
So I'm never moving there. Which sucks because I have an idol who lives there, but...
It's pretty.
Alright.
A lot
Goodbye,
of people
idol.
die there.
I'll never...
They got nothing to do. What's in Washington?
Inside, they found almost 8,000 photos taken by Rodney of unidentified women and children, most of them in a sexual nature. Along with the photos, police found a collection of women's earrings. Among them were the earrings Robin was wearing when she was last seen.
I think if I ever became a serial killer, I'd take their left shoe. So people would think I was a troll.
I mean, valid. I don't know what I'd take.
I'd drain
Maybe
them.
I'd just start killing people with glasses and stealing their glasses to see if I could find someone with the same prescription.
Fair. I would drag them under a bridge.
At his first trial in 1979, Rodney was sentenced to death for the murder of Robin Samso, but had the sentencing appealed because the jurors weren't informed of his former sex crimes.
They weren't informed. That's how he appealed it. He appealed it, not prosecutors. I mean, you got the job done, but I'm not sure if you made it better.
No.
This led to a second trial in 1986. Again, he was convicted of murder and sentenced to death, but it got overturned by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. This meant he would have a third trial for the murder of Robin Samso.
I need a trading card of this guy.
Can the court just, convict him? It's so annoying how 3 times this dude, who's clearly a serial killer,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just like, nah, just let him try again. He's done. He's done. He just, keep him already.
Wrap it up! Going again!
Literally.
However, before his third trial, Orange County investigators would use Rodney's DNA, earrings, and photographs found in his storage locker to link Rodney to the rape and murder of 4 other Los Angeles women. Jill Barcombe, an 18-year-old New York runaway who was found, quote, rolled up like a ball, end quote, in a Los Angeles ravine in 1977. Georgia Wixit, a 27-year-old found bludgeoned to death in her Malibu apartment in 1977.
Charles Lamb.
Charlotte.
Stop reading off my case.
You kept calling her Charles.
I was trying to get there, and you gave me the time.
Charlotte.
This is so terrible. This one died.
I know. That's like a horrible death too.
You're still reading off my case. I just realized. Jesus.
What?
Oh my god.
Where? What's a manila folder?
Charlotte Lamb, a 31-year-old who was strangled, raped, and left for dead in the laundry room of an apartment complex in 1978. And Jill Parenteau, a 21-year-old who was killed in her Burbank apartment in 1979. On February 2010, the third Robin Samso trial was commenced with the added charges of the other 4 women.
Good. The only problem is if he gets tried and convicted and they're like, he only kind of molested him. A year to life. A year to life.
See,
that's all he needs.
That's the
then
thing.
None of them can be tried again.
That's the thing that was very risky about adding all of them together, which a lot of people thought was a bad idea, is that that means he would have to be convicted of all 5 murders in that one trial, or he would, you couldn't double jeopardy. You couldn't try him for any of the murders again.
Rodney took the risky strategy of representing himself at the trial. For 5 hours, Rodney played the role of witness and interrogator, asking himself questions in different voices and speaking in the third person.
Where were you that night? Well, I was out sitting on my porch. How do we know that you were alone? I'm not sure, good sir.
Literally.
But I reckon. I don't know why I made him Southern, but
I know, but he has he was from Texas. He has a Southern vibe.
I was right.
For his closing argument, he played the song, quote, Alice's Restaurant, end quote, by Arlo Guthrie. In the song, the protagonist tells the psychiatrist that, quote, he was to kill, end quote.
Just picture this with me, will you?
Picture if you will.
Picture if you will. You're in court. This man has chosen to represent himself. And just before his closing arguments, he's gone. Nobody can find him in the courtroom. And then all of a sudden, he bursts through both doors with a boom box on one of those rolling things that teachers use for TVs. And he slides it to the front, kicks it through the doors with his foot, and hits play. And it's this song. And he's looking there smug.
That's probably what he did.
The entire time it's playing, and everybody's just looking at each other.
I don't have it written in my case file, but what he also did is he played his clip from the dating game at trial.
You can't convict me, I'm a TV star!
Unsurprisingly, in less than 2 days, Rodney was convicted on all 5 counts of first-degree murder. And, for the 3rd time, Rodney was sentenced to death on March 30th, 2010.
Took you long enough.
This was really recent.
Yeah, I know. When I was doing... Wait, it gets more recent.
At his sentencing, none other than Tally Shapiro, his first victim, attended. This surprised Rodney, who actually apologized to her, saying, quote, "I sincerely regret and apologize for my despicable actions that day," end quote. Tally was unmoved by his apology, however, later stating, quote, "I have trust and commitment issues. He apologized because he got caught. The fact that this guy is still alive is amazing," end quote.
I mean, honestly, yeah, I see where she's coming from. The dude's like, I am so sorry that I did that. Gracie. Apologize with your blood.
Yeah, I like that she just called him out on it. That she was like, no, you're not sorry, you're just a butt face. Like, I appreciate that.
In 2013, Rodney was given an additional sentence of 25 years after being convicted of the homicides of 2 girls in New York, Cornelia Crilly, murdered in 1971, and Ellen Hoover, murdered in 1977.
So this is just interesting in that his murders weren't just kept to the places he lived. He never lived in Wyoming.
Yeah.
He lived in California, and he lived in New York.
So he didn't really have like a hunting ground.
No.
He was just comfortable anywhere.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
In 2016, Rodney was charged for the murder of 28-year-old Christine Ruth Thornton from Wyoming, who was murdered in 1977. She was recognized in one of Rodney's pictures by her family. Unfortunately, Christine was 6 months pregnant at the time of her death. However, Rodney was too ill to make the journey from California State Prison for the trial.
He did it. I'm just gonna throw that out there. He did it.
So
You don't need a trial. He did it.
did he get off on that charge?
No, I mean, he's already on death row, and even if he got that, because he is still trying to appeal the death row, like the 3rd conviction, but then New York convicted him for 25 years, so even if he did, then he would just go to prison over there.
In the end, Rodney was convicted of 8 murders, but police believe he could have murdered up to 130 women. Because of the legal system's failure to keep Rodney contained after his first horrific assault, Rodney was enabled to continue his murder streak unchecked for almost a decade.
For now, the mystery of how many people Rodney killed remains unsolved.
No, you can't do that. That's copyrighted.
Why? It sounds so cool.
I know. That's why they copyrighted it.
It sounds so cool, though. Just,
No.
why? That's all I have to say. That's what you get.
And that's called karma.
Another thing that I didn't actually put in it, the pictures that Rodney took, there were over 1,000 that they found in that storage locker, but 120 of them have actually been released to the public, and there is a link where you can view all of them because they're still trying to identify the people in those pictures. 900 of them could not be released due to their sexual nature. From what I was hearing, some of them were like really bad, and it was like, look, we could publish this, but then he'd probably be like arrested on child pornography charges for like looking. Well, anyways, he's a 76-year-old now waiting on death row, and I hope he dies horribly soon because he was really a terrible dude.
Can we throw tomatoes at him?
Let's do it.
Yes.
French Revolution style.
Viva la Revolution! I messed that up.